So, thank you for being here. I'll describe a little of my background. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. I'm a stonemason by trade. I studied economics. I'm from Boston, as you might be able to ascertain. I gotta say, I was frankly a real skeptic about the idea of giants and a lot of ancient mysteries that are very popular now. I come from a scientific background. I would read academic documents and watch PBS specials ad nauseum, and I really didn't see much veracity to these arguments. And then I kind of fell into the whole mystery of giants by accident, studying a tangential mystery in New England, being a stonemason and trying to figure out if Native Americans built stonework here. But honestly, to me, it just seems like it's ubiquitous. Every inch of the globe has some evidence of giants, whether it's rock art with 6 fingers and toes or some reports or giant lore. And I'm going to try to give a broad view of this through comparative analysis. I study Rudolf Steiner, Edgar Cayce, Madame Blavatsky, oral traditions. I do ceremonies with wisdom keepers all around the world. I'm not averse to San Pedro and peyote and ayahuasca ceremonies. I'll do anything for a good story and to get to the root of what's going on here. And for me, it's a metaphysical story, and it goes back to the lost continent of Atlantis, Hugh's favorite place. So I will get into that too. I will try to anticipate your questions, like where do the giants come from? Why are some malevolent? Why are some benevolent? Are they the wisdom keepers? Are they the geomancers of old? And so I will give this broad outline from the view of comparative analysis, but I'll go through these different aspects and try to weave the story all together. So I've done a series of shows for history. Hugh, my brother, and I did Search for the Lost Giants. We did Roanoke specials. I've appeared on Expedition Unknown with Josh Gates. I've appeared with Megan Fox, Uncharted on the Science Channel. Last month, Code of the Wild, the Ecuador Giants for the Travel Channel. And I just filmed a spot for Ancient Aliens. So Hugh and I keep appearing on different shows and sharing our research. As Hugh had mentioned, we wrote this book together, Giants on Record. You know, one thing I would like to point out is that the incontrovertible science that makes your cell phone work cannot be applied with ancient understanding of the past. Anthropology, archaeology, history, they're all educated guesses. And I am not anti-science at all, and I don't believe in academic conspiracies. There's real conspiracies in the world. You want to investigate JFK and 9/11. There is tons of evidence that something fishy is going on. Even Jeffrey Epstein just occurred. So I'm not against the idea of conspiracy, although it is, sent out there as a pejorative, like somehow you're unhinged if you entertain these ideas. But academics are essentially involved in like an atheistic cult. And once again, I'm not anti-science. It's just I know the thinking of scientists, and it is very, there is no allowance of the spiritual, metaphysical side. Now, Pythagoras, Plato, all the great scientists of old were metaphysical geniuses. They understood the holographic nature of reality. They understood why the universe was created and how we're all connected to this quantum grid and how the mind creates reality. And modern day science is kind of a cold Cartesian, left brain, male dominated version of reality that is lacking in many ways. Just like the healthcare system, they don't take a holistic approach to figure out the past. So I get into the mystics, I get into oral traditions and religious documents and academic sources and try to give a more holistic approach to the past. So one of the things I've encountered is this persistent idea that humans were created by an extraterrestrial species, which I firmly believe now. I'm not going to get into that. Silva has a great book if you're interested in this idea. If you're listening to this webinar, you're already open to these ideas anyways. What I'll say is that I've come to believe through all these sources that not only were Homo sapiens created by an extraterrestrial genetic intervention, the giants were created by these same ancient alien gods. all the alien gods who show up all around the planet, from Viracocha to Fuxi in China to Oannes, they are all specifically noted to be androgynous and hybrid beings. Androgyny is a strange trait that keeps appearing. And they're creating humans on potter's wheels, like at the Temple of Esna. The androgynous god Khnum is making humans. And the Dogon people in Mali, Africa, they have these oral traditions that state that the Nomo were from Sirius. These androgynous creator gods were from Sirius. So it ties the whole story in, like why, like Oannes, the fish god who shows up in Samaria, he has that man bag and he's half fish and half man, and he teaches the arts of civilization just like Viracocha, but he is specifically known to be androgynous. I'm saying he, it's this sexless advanced being, basically. So take, you know, what you want of that, but the level of specificity all around the world of this particular trait and this association with giants is very remarkable. So the giants are associated with the lost world of Atlantis. Now, I'll look back to how I got into this thing about 20 years ago. I was studying old town and county histories, and here you have George Sheldon in Deerfield, Massachusetts. Now, he gives this account in his town history, where it states, one of these skeletons was discovered to me by Henry Math, who saw it, as being of monstrous size, the head as big as a peck basket with double teeth all round. Skeleton was examined by Stephen Williams. He said the owner must have been nearly 8 feet high. But what was remarkable about that is the double rows of teeth were noted. Now, I went to the museum where Hugh and I did, where that was founded by George Sheldon, and he had a scrapbook of accounts of giant skeletons. And I was like, whoa, this guy must have been on to something. He was an archaeologist. He was a Massachusetts state senator. He was a brilliant, open-minded thinker. And it really got me going. Like, maybe there's something to the story. In fact, on page 83 here, you have a list of bones that were at the museum. And one was an over 8-foot femur from Marion, Ohio, that he had delivered. George Sheldon had delivered by another archaeologist. It was on display. I spoke with my friend who's an anthropologist who repatriated several years ago as part of the Native American Repatriation Act of 1990. So on display, they had a giant femur at this museum near where I live of an over 8-foot individual. So here are some of the accounts I've uncovered all throughout New England in the town and county histories of double rows of teeth. So here we have a skeleton, must have been 7 foot 8 inches, and it had double row of teeth in each jaw. And here's another one right here. I'm just showing you these, so, you know, to show you the original source. But here we go. Rockingham, Vermont, a remarkable human skeleton was found. The jawbone was such size that a large man could easily slip it over his face, over the face, and the teeth, which were double, were all perfect. They're going out of their way to mention massive jawbones and double rows of teeth. And these are just, you know, respected town historians chronicling these finds. This is from Minnesota. Each had double rows of teeth in front as well as the back part of the jaw. Here's Noble County. The Bates Mound was open. The remarkable feature of these remains was that they had double teeth in front as well as in back in the upper and lower jaws. So over 8-foot skeletons, they're going out of the way, you know, the remarkable feature. So this to me is a reality. This is a time of inefficient communication. These are not hoaxes. These are respected scientists oftentimes who are reporting this. Even in Scientific America, some wonderful skulls found in California are reported having double teeth all the way around the jaw. As Hugh showed you, it's a rare genetic condition, much like 6 fingers and 6 toes. Chris Coombs, in this wonderful book, The Giant of Wales, gives this account, and it's about 200 AD. In the time of Hadrian the Emperor, there was raised from the earth in a place called Messana, which is Carthage, the body of the giant of Ida, who was 20 feet in length and who had double sets of teeth, or 2 rows of teeth, still standing completely preserved in his head or gums. So a 20-foot giant in Carthage in 200 AD is unearthed, and it exactly lines up with the double rows of teeth anomaly found all over ancient America, dug up by the settlers. Remember, the Native Americans would never touch the mounds of their ancestors or the giants or whomever. They basically left them untouched for thousands and thousands of years, and the settlers over a 150-year period ravaged all the burial places of the ancient ones. And what they found is accounts like this. A skeleton in the New York Times. The skull was as large as a half-bushel measure, over 9 foot tall. They're using the parlance of the time to discuss how large the skull was. As full as a half-bushel measure is absolutely enormous, well out of normal range, over 9 foot tall. We're not talking about NBA players. We are talking about genetic freaks that have no similarities to current Homo sapiens. That's what 9 foot tall looks like. That's pituitary gigantism that Robert Waldo had from Alton, Illinois. Charles Huntington, he was there when doctors Larkin and Cheney unearthed an over 9 foot skeleton in Canandaigua, New York. He took the measurements and he made this model of the over 9 foot skeleton. I spoke with his granddaughter. She said he was perfectly sane. He was an inventive guy. He's very, very bright, and he couldn't get the size of the bones out of his head, but they crumbled eventually away to dust, and he took the measurements and made this skeleton. And they were housed in they're housed in the Smithsonian and in the New York State Geological Center as well. 9 foot tall, 28-inch length shin bone, 14 inches long in length, and 35 inches across the shoulder. Once again, at Buffalo and DC, these measurements are noted, dug up by these respected doctors. So what I'm displaying here, these aren't all, crackpot, clickbait of the time kind of headlines to get you to read a story. They're buried obscurely in town and county histories. Right here, over 9 foot tall. The femur bone is a yard long. That's 36 inches, utterly, astoundingly huge. Massive underjaw, much larger than that of the ordinary man. So if the jawbone is fitting over the face of the largest man in town over and over again, there's a story here. You just don't cook that up as some hoax or something like that. Now, even professionals in the 50s found enormous skeletons. Right here, 7 foot 2 inch by Don Dragoo from the Carnegie. And on the right is that the far right skeleton is the 7 foot 2 person. Right here's a picture of the skeleton. At the Dover Mound in Kentucky in 1952, another 7 foot tall skeleton was found. Now, what's interesting about this is that these noted scientists picked out the trait of the massive jawbone, and they called it the Adena jaw. The Adena were the first of the mound builders going back about 1000 BC, and they built these burial mounds in different geometric forms around ancient America. And they are noting that the Adena people were huge and robust and elongated their skulls and had massive jawbones. So it's really interesting that noted scientists are pointing out what the rest of these accounts are pointing out as well. In 1965 at DeSoto Cave, they found an over 7 foot skeleton. Joseph Langley Benthal, Alabama archaeologist, found the skeleton in 1965, over 7 foot tall, and he noted that the jawbone was so massive it could fit over his face. And they reburied the remains in the cave as part of the Native American Repatriation Act. So once again, a noted scientist is picking up on utterly bizarre anatomic measurements. And here we have 7,000-year-old skulls and skeletons over 7 feet tall. Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History, 1959. Look at the skull on the right, absolutely massive. It's at the Texas Archaeological Research Lab. I'd like to get it genetically tested, DNA tested, and to learn more about it. Now, I'm not saying these giants were not Native American, as some people do. I think there were giant Native American chiefs that were the wisdom keepers and the shamans that I believe came from Atlantis, as strange as that sounds. And they migrated here after the flood, and they migrated out to the British Isles, and we have the same stories there: advanced geometry, advanced spiritual teachings, similar beliefs in the reality of the eternal reality of the soul. All kinds of specific things are noted, and they specifically note that they're from a lost continent in the middle Atlantic. So, I really believe you have this flow out from Atlantis. We know that the Younger Dryas impact event and massive flood occurred 12,800 years ago, as verified by science. We know that the Clovis barrier, the idea of people only coming to America about 12,000 years ago, starting 12,000 years ago, has been debunked. We know out of Africa is a mess, and we don't really, through an anthropological lens, be able to understand our origins. So all theories are open at this point. And I point to the mystical sources, the religious sources, and the oral traditions of indigenous people to tell this alternate story. In our show right here, we found evidence of this 8-foot skeleton in the microfilm. Right here, these giant skulls, that's a ruler on the bottom and a thigh bone. That's probably 26, 27 inches long. This is from the Ozarks, 7 and 2.5 inch skeleton. Now, you might say, well, that's only 7'2", but the amount of 7-foot and tall skeletons found in the burial mounds of ancient America is of a much higher percentage than 7-footers occur in our normal population today, indicating survivors from a lost world, an ancient link to the giants of the past. And scientists view this like, no, evolution, we evolved from Australopithecines. There is no place for giants. It's this, and giants is a religious idea too. So it's considered, basically verboten. We have like an atheistic, logic-based, quote unquote, data-driven discipline that doesn't respect thousands of years of oral traditions and religious documents, as if they were conjured out of thin air about nothing. But all those sources are saying the same specific thing about the past, and all the evidence appears to be there. Now, right here, the head of the Carnegie, Dr. Holland, unearthed between an 8 and 9 foot skeleton in Pennsylvania, listed in Scientific America. And this is a really interesting one, the Chickasaw Mound. Right here, the records of the past. And this is at the, what's the museum in Chicago that has the big T-Rex? The Field Museum, and that has Sue the T-Rex. One of the scientists in the early 1900s, they found a 29-inch femur bone. That's a 9-foot tall skeleton. And listen to what this accredited archaeologist says. The skulls are extremely large. The jaw is of such size that it would slip over my own face and have considerable space to spare. So you have farmers, you have doctors, lawyers, professionals, all reporting the same thing. Now, in 1897, this is one of my favorite accounts here, we have the Miamisburg giant was found, massive jawbone, 8 foot 1.5 inches. There's a sketch of it there. Anthropologists from all around the country joined the excavation, were stunned by the find. And in the middle of this article, you can see they list it with the greatest giants of all time, like Charles Byrne, the giant of Ireland, and other accounts. This is the quote from Thomas Wilson, head of Smithsonian Anthropology Department, who analyzed the skull. The authenticity of the skull is beyond doubt. Its antiquity unquestionably great. To my own personal knowledge, several such crania were discovered in the Hopewell group of mounds in Ohio. So he is verifying this find, which is quite astonishing, in the Smithsonian's own documents. Now, this man, Heckelwelder, lived with the Delaware Indians, and he writes all about their oral traditions. And he talks about their legends of giants that was specifically talked about, this ancient war of the native people with the giant ones, with the cannibalistic giants that existed before the flood and sometimes after the flood, but in much diminished numbers. And you have the same story around the world. All the native tribes have these traditions. And oddly enough, they have traditions of little people too, which I won't get into here. But just like Ireland and Scotland, the legends of the little ones are ubiquitous as well as giants.